Hey there, I'm Pete Townsend, and this is Money Never Sleeps. We look inside the minds of entrepreneurs and at the crossover of startups, enterprise, finance, technology, and life as we know it. As many of our listeners know, I lead the Techstars Web3 Accelerator, investing in entrepreneurs building in Web3 and enabling the next wave of growth in the decentralized internet and in tokenized economies. Applications are now open for our spring 2025 class, so check out techstars.com/accelerators/web3 to apply. This week, I'm joined by Mark McLaughlin, an Irish entrepreneur who has been at the forefront of the ticketing industry since 2006. Mark is a co-founder and CEO of Coras, a company that's been revolutionizing the ticketing landscape with its powerful API solutions, boasting clients like Ryanair. But Mark's journey doesn't stop there. He's now leading Coras into a new frontier with Fida, a cutting-edge loyalty platform that's merging the best of Web2 and Web3 worlds. In this episode, we'll explore Mark's entrepreneurial journey from founding Ticketmaster and Ticket ABC to building Coras, and now innovating with Fida. We'll dive into their recent €1.3 million funding round led by Irish VC DataOp and the unique challenges of navigating the Web2 and Web3 investment landscape. Mark will share insights on balancing traditional and forward-thinking approaches for those straddling the Web2 and Web3 worlds, what it means for getting these businesses funded. All right here on Money Never Sleeps.
I've always been a big fan of Fred Wilson.
Oh, yeah,
Fred Wilson
from USV.
Yeah. And I just always liked his writing, and he just kept on writing about blockchain and Bitcoin and everything else like that. So I was kind of going, well, he's a very smart person. He kept on writing about it. Like even my dad, he's retired now, but he used to work in financial services. And like, I remember sending him something in, say 2014, 2015 going, this could be something big. So I think that was the sense there was something there without understanding the detail.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I know, and also there's always going to be similarities between what happened to the internet in terms of we've bobbled around for a while.
Totally.
Before there was any sort of proper consumer applications and stuff like that. And it's one of the things that really frustrates me about the industry is there's so much sort of just chasing the casino side of things and not kind of going, look, here's a fundamental technology that can change multiple industries. Let's build products for that, as opposed to going, but obviously it's easy to go, listen, this meme coin's gone up by 10,000% yesterday. So it's like,
yeah,
I get it. Like if people have to make returns and that's what makes returns, but my interest is always where disruption meets technology. And so that environment is very hard where the latest new thing, whether it be Deepin or whether it be meme coins or whatever else it is.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And speaking of where disruption meets technology, right? You've been working on ticketing since 2006 and things have moved on and we've gotten better, but it hasn't been a huge quantum leap. And going back through that story, Mark, can you walk us through that journey from Ticketmaster to Ticket ABC to Coras and now Fida?
Yeah, actually, rather topically, given the news yesterday, I had an argument with Ticketmaster over Oasis tickets in 2005.
No way.
Yeah. So I was living in London and they were playing some warm-up shows, including at the Clapham Grand, which I lived about a 10-minute walk from. And so I bought standing tickets and I got sent circle tickets. And so when I contacted customer support, they tried to convince me it was all general admission. And having spent sort of too many nights at the venue that I would care to remember, I knew this wasn't true. So I spent days on the phone to customer service. And then eventually, because this is the type of person that I am, it was in the days where you kind of figure out what the email was of big companies. So I emailed the whole board of Ticketmaster in America saying their UK operations were fraudulent. I'd taken legal advice. This is all obviously total lies. But I was a massive Oasis fan, so I still am obviously, and so I was just very, very determined to get my tickets. So eventually, one of the people replied from the board, going, "We'll sort this." So I ended up walking to the venue. I had the CEO of Ticketmaster UK's mobile number in case I didn't get my tickets, and I went up to the box office, and they're like, "Oh, you're the person that emailed America," and I got my tickets. So
that's great.
I think it was this sort of. Like I love music and sport, and I was just going, this doesn't work. This industry, it's just that sense you get. This doesn't really work very well. And I think I just became obsessed by it really. And it seemed obvious that tickets would sort of end up on your phone. And there were experiments in time around like transport, but not for sort of events. So that kind of became, my mission, so to speak. And then I realized I could sort of work my day job in corporate finance and still work on this at the same time. So that's kind of where Ticket Tech sort of originated. It was just sort of like, if you can reduce your delivery costs by sending tickets to the phone, you can reduce the fees and you can give the customer a better experience. That was the sort of the thought process. But like, although we were like, this is like pre-smartphones. So the scanning equipment was this very big box that we had to get installed into these venues and stuff. But I think we were the first people to do mobile ticketing for Premiership football and West End Theatre. The first show we did bizarrely was Take That in Barcelona because we knew a promoter in Spain. And we ended up working with like Hammersmith Apollo and lots of cool venues, Jazz Cafe and stuff. But after we launched Ticket Tech, although the delivery method was sort of different and sort of changing how things were done, ticket agency still existed. But what we looked at the market and the feedback we were getting from a lot of venues was, we'd like to be able to sell tickets ourselves, have a solution, like a white label solution. And I think Eventbrite started in 2006, 2007. So it's kind of around the same sort of time. So we then started to build it in sort of late 2007, early 2008, in terms of lessons from raising money. Make sure you know who your investors are. We raised money from a US hedge fund, believe it or not, in sort of March 2008. So timing obviously not great.
Wow.
And they ended up leaving us €1.5 million short of a 2 million investment. That was
that's rough.
It was difficult. We got in and hired people on 12-month contracts and done all this stuff. It was, And the problem about it was there was no money. It wasn't like here are COVID supports or here or whatever else like this. It was like finance world is done, basically. Yeah. And I went to a wedding of a friend of mine. I sat beside this guy who was a sort of successful city guy. He goes, listen, I really like this. And literally the next week he wrote a check for 50,000 sterling. And that gave us enough cash to have a couple of people to build an MVP. And we actually launched then in 2010 with the UCD Bull being our first client. And then it was really interesting at the time. The reason people take ticketing in-house is because they want obviously to own the customer data and they want to, take more of the revenue. And it was actually a lot of the dance clubs that really copped onto this quite quickly. So we signed Fabric. That was a big turning point because Fabric is one of the most famous dance venues in the world. I suppose also like music made with technology, very technology friendly industry. And then, we signed Tasha and we had a whole sort of slate of dance venues, primarily in the UK, to the extent that I think by 2012, I think it was, Time Out did like the 3 best things to do New Year's Eve, 2011, 2012. And out of the top 5, we were the ticketing system for 3. So that was quite a cool kind of moment. And then we signed one of the top promoters in the UK who are called Kilimanjaro. And they, at the time, were promoting. They had big acts, established acts, but they had a couple of up-and-coming acts. One was Ed Sheeran, and the other one was the 1975. So we were very lucky. We got to work with those artists as they sort of started playing bigger and bigger venues. But inevitably, when we did that deal, one of the ticket agencies in the UK was like, okay, we're going to stamp this out now. This has got out of hand. These guys are actually impacting our business a little bit. So what they did, one of the agencies who remain nameless, they basically effectively built the exact same solution, exact same pricing model, but then gave 20 to 30 grand each to venues to switch. And even if the venues didn't make 20 to 30 grand in revenue a year, it was just purely, we're just shutting this down now. So we kind of saw the writing on the wall. Like we still obviously had this, and we're going to have the clients who we're still making money from. And we got the business to be profitable for a few years, like not massive or anything, but it was a profitable business. But we kind of saw the writing on the wall. And at the time then, Eventbrite were raising crazy money and there was Ticketfly. There was always other businesses and we're kind of going, I think this has no future. At this level, you need to have a lot of money basically to operate sort of a white label solution. But it was obviously a very interesting, we came in and did something interesting. And then what happened was that when we had Ticket ABC, which is the white label solution, we were doing these on sales, like, Simply Red or big Ed Sheeran or whatever on sales, like on a Friday morning at 9:00. And it was crazy the way the tickets had to be moved around. So effectively, you had a spreadsheet and you get a call from promoter going, seller A has sold tickets quicker than you. I want you to move these tickets now. And these were seated tickets. So you're moving sort of seated tickets while people were buying them in an on sale using a phone and a spreadsheet.
Jesus.
So yeah. And James, he's co-founder of Coras and Fida. He was kind of going, this is exactly what technology is built to do, is to automate something like this. So we built this product, which we were sort of called Tix Hub. And funnily enough, Chorus in our Jira is still called Tix Hub because it kind of evolved out of that. And so we had this, like, you can have a centralized platform where promoters can move tickets around effectively using technology. But we got 3 of the top 5 promoters, testing it, using it. But I think it actually brought too much transparency was the problem. So, but then what I had obviously seen what car hire had done and hotels were doing with APIs. And I remember this one day going on, so we could kind of use this, but as opposed to trying to move tickets around sort of promoters and venues and sellers, we could use it to move tickets to enable other brands to sell these tickets. And that's sort of where Coras kind of originated. And then we signed a deal with Ryanair and we had no product, no funding and no team. So, and luckily Atlantic Bridge led a round of funding. We managed to get a product live in about 8 months. And we started off with West End Theatre and then added sport, tours and activities and are now sort of back to live music. So sort of back to our roots. And then circumstance again, we had sort of 2020 lined up as our big scale up year and then COVID. So the 2 businesses, a lot of businesses that we didn't want to be involved with, but one was travel and the other one was events. So that obviously was a disaster to say the least. Your revenue basically goes to zero. And we had a round fall through in February 2020 because no one wanted to invest in a travel tech software business. But having gone through the experience in 2008, there was a lot more supports available, like you were getting, in terms of wage supports. And it wasn't as bleak because everyone was kind of in the same boat. So from that point of view, and miraculously, we managed to raise like 300 or 400 grand, I think, in March 2020. By far the most stressful period of my life because it was just because we had built a product, we had clients, it was just like, but it was like, no one's traveling, no one's going to events. So like to give you an idea, we were 18 people in January 2020, and then we were 8 people by March. So we cut our costs by like 70% pretty much overnight because we took the view that this would take at least 2 years to figure itself out. That was the sort of, we need to survive for 2 years and the sort of reduced cost base. So although like airlines were sort of flying back then properly in sort of 2022, it probably wasn't really only till last year that they were looking to try and engage and add new products and stuff as well. But 2022, I think they just wanted to have a normal year after the sort of like having 2 very not normal years. And so this year we managed to sort of announce AirAsia and Lufthansa Group's airlines and Wizz Air, and we've got lots of other partners we haven't announced yet in the pipeline. So the focus now really on Coras is to scale and commercialize these partnerships properly. And we've got our biggest content deal we haven't announced yet, which we're really, really excited about, sort of taking us back to our music roots soon.
Even raising 300,000 during COVID is impressive. How did you do that?
We actually got a good bit of investor interest, but obviously COVID then that was like towards the end of January. COVID then just scared most people off. I had gone over to do this pitch night for Quintessentially Ventures in London. So Quintessentially, that hospitality group for sort of high net worths. And they had sort of a venture arm. And I pitched it. There was a Danish investor there. He kind of went, listen, I still like this. Obviously, the valuation is going to be different and the terms are going to be different in terms of the structure of the investment. But he's just, and I'll put in 200 grand. And that gave us the basis to then, we had that, it was very tricky because at the time, you had that kind of like everyone, and it's always the same with investments, everyone's like, well, what are they doing? What are they doing? What are they doing? So he just went like, yeah, I'll put in 200 grand. That was really a pretty big moment. And we luckily had most of the investment documents. We had to change them a little bit. We're all kind of already done from the previous round. So we just had to update them a bit. You were getting alerts constantly, like Angela Merkel's got COVID. And it was just every day there was just this like, because the macro is such a big influence on whether you can raise money or not. That's just the biggest factor. And so it was just like death by 1,000 cuts and trying to raise it every day. There was just more and more terrible news. So yeah, absolute miracle, to be very honest with you. So
I hear you. Yeah. What I say to founders, Mark, is that there is on this planet right now, not for every founder, but any well-prepared founder, there is an investor who in an alternate universe has already written you a $200K check. With those investors, finding them, it can be like a needle in a haystack. So yes, they are out there somewhere.
I think we had done a decent presentation. I think the key thing is we had actually presented in person.
Yeah,
that was key before COVID sort of happened. I just think that we had a live product. we were generating revenue, we had some good brands signed up, and we had a good pipeline of brands that subsequently took a number of years to get live. But at the time, remember, we were kind of going 2020 going, this is it. Like we've built the product, we got loads of really good high quality inventory. We can scale this up now. So it might have been like the view that people took on COVID, basically. It might have been, listen, I think COVID's a blip.
Lots of things at play. Just on that, with having that impressive roster of clients, that your success has been impressive with Ryanair and other airlines and other players in there. And like you mentioned, this one returning to your roots that you're about to announce. That can you tell us about the decision to add the Fida loyalty platform to Coras and how that's all going to unfold?
Yeah, sure. Like I think where Fida originated was, if you look at sort of airlines and hotels, loyalty is a huge part of their business. If you look at 3 of the top 4 airlines in the US, I think their loyalty business is around the same size as their market cap, which is a little bit bonkers when you think about it. During COVID, like American pledged its Advantage frequent flyer loyalty program as collateral for a $4.75 billion loan from the US government,
wow,
which just sort of shows you what the value of it. And it's been a relatively natural evolution. Like we had 2 or 3 partners who were looking at using the Tickets API product just for their loyalty program. So you could earn and burn your points on this product category, which is what you kind of see with hotels and car hire. So they thought it would be a good product category to get people sort of interested in the loyalty program. If you go down the loyalty rabbit hole, the tech stack is just a lot of CSV files in many cases, and it requires some pretty big OpEx and CapEx, which is why a lot of brands don't have loyalty programs, and why you have other airlines will share the sort of the same back-end infrastructure like Avios or something like that, because you basically reduce the overall cost of operating the program. And I've been interested in blockchain, which we mentioned at the start there, for a good while without properly understanding it. We had a look at a blockchain ticket resale platform back in 2017. And we did like a workshop on it with this company called Big Chain DB, who were trying to build like their own chain sort of at the time. But it was only really tokenization. Like I read so much stuff about blockchain as well. This didn't click. But tokenization was the thing that clicked, because the way I look at tokenization is that it's a consumer incentivization mechanism. Again, this is the way I look at it on the people in my industry.
No, I was reading something yesterday that triggered that for me. It was Olaf Carlson Wee, who was one of the co-founders at Coinbase, and he's now Polychain Capital. And he was talking about the incentivization vortex. And and this is at the core of tokenization.
Yeah, and the thing about it is that, like, to me, incentivization mechanism is loyalty. So like if you just took it no blockchain at all, like that's really what loyalty programs basically are. So we kind of pretty quickly came to the view that loyalty would evolve from a sort of a point-based system to a token-based system. That was, very high level kind of idea. But because of the high OpEx and CapEx, there is this barrier to entry for lots of brands that would like to have a loyalty system. And that will be reduced to just basically issuing a token, because the sort of shared infrastructure will be there. And to sort of bring it full circle, it's sort of the same feeling as tickets will be mobile. Like it's like loyalty will be tokens. That was the gut feel without knowing anything really about loyalty or not much about blockchain. It was just like, it just feels like this is a natural sort of evolution. And so we thought, we're in an interesting position here. We're embedded into the purchase flows of some brands, payment flows. It's like, well, why couldn't we build whatever the next generation loyalty product's going to look like? I think a lot of times in products, you have to have this sort of naivety by going like, well, why not us? Someone's going to build this. Why not us? And that's really where Fida sort of originated. It was just like, if you're an ancillary software provider, you have to think about loyalty, and not just what loyalty is now, but what loyalty is going to be tomorrow. And that's why I think Coras itself is evolving, not just from sort of a Tickets API product to basically being an ancillary software solution, with loyalty being a key part of that. So that's really where Fida originated.
Okay, good. And when you and I spoke last week, Mark, that you shared with me how the whole liquidity part of this is all going to work. And it's something that to the general user, they probably don't need to know that much about. How are you going to insulate the day-to-day user of Fida or of the services that Fida enables from the back-end complexities of maintaining this liquidity in a token?
Yeah, so realistically, if we go to most brands at the moment, they'd be quite wary of issuing their own token. We've had some chats and they're like, not so sure. There's still legal issues. There's technical issues or whatever. But we're saying, listen, how about we enable your customers to earn our token, the Fida token, when they purchase tickets, as sort of a tip your toe in the water kind of thing, as like an extra bonus. And then you can see the whole system working, issuance and redemption. And then if you're interested in your own token, then you've had a very sort of risk-free way of being sort of introduced to it. And then the idea is then next year we'll open the platform to any brand who will be able to basically use the sort of Fida API to choose which products and services they want their customers to earn and what products and services customers can use tokens to spend on. The product itself has three key pillars, sort of issuance, redemption, and liquidity. And I think that although, some blockchain and loyalty is not it's a very obvious idea, right? It's not like earth shattering in terms of what it is. But I think the key thing is that in talking about like disruption and stuff like that, and is that the technology is now catching up with the business model. And that's really the key. So because the transaction costs through L2s and stuff like that are very, very low now, which makes it economical to issue a token, no matter how small the sort of transaction is. And more importantly, coming back to your question on the customer, is that the wallet APIs that are out there at the moment effectively allows you to give the customer a Web2 experience with a Web3 product. So, and that's a real sort of important sort of change. So how we do it is that on issuance, when a purchase is made, we create the wallet in the background, we add the tokens earned to the wallet, and then we send the customer an email asking them to complete their registration. So in many cases, the onboarding is actually slicker than a traditional sort of loyalty system. And then, our worries were, my worries anyway, were that, because these are ERC20 tokens, so they're floating value tokens. Our worry is that on redemption, there'll be some sort of price manipulation for customers buying goods and services based on the fluctuation. So basically how we do it is, as most brands can't hold crypto on their balance sheet, we'll basically convert the brand token to a stable coin, including a small buffer as the first step. So for example, let's say it's a $100 transaction, we'll convert, say, $102 worth of the brand token to USDC. And what we'll then do is charge our own virtual corporate card for the $100. Now, the great thing for the brand under this system is they get paid in full upon redemption.
Yeah.
Whereas under traditional loyalty, they're taking it can be a small enough hit, can be 5%, 10%, 15%, but they're still taking a hit on redemption. And they're also holding that as a liability on their balance sheet as well. And like, to me, I think lots of people, these are currencies. They're brand currencies. What you call them tokens are good. I don't see a huge difference between paying in sterling or paying in a brand token. It's just a digital currency that has a different value.
Yeah.
And so the great thing about that is that the brands that can't hold crypto don't have to worry about that. They get paid in full on redemption, and there's a financial uplift to having this. And also, as I said, in future, they'll be able to say, listen, only these products can be used for tokens to be redeemed for. So they can control in terms of what products are there. On the liquidity question, this is where we were stuck for a long time because we couldn't really have a situation where, listen, if the market is good, then the liquidity works. And if the market is bad, it doesn't. That's just not credible going to a serious CTO, CMO, legal team at a big brand. So, but what we realized was that because there's like a revenue event associated with the token issuance, which is the fees that you generate from selling the product, what effectively we could do is take a proportion of the fee revenue and sort of put a bid into the market for these tokens that are being issued from the treasury. So effectively, we can underwrite the system at the point of issuance. Now, if you look at loyalty in general, the breakage rates, it's like the percentage of unused points is somewhere between 20 to 50%. Like, it's pretty high. But we're going to assume 100% redemption and underwrite it at the point of issuance. And there's a lot of treasury management issues that will bring in. And we're working with a company in the UK called Trireme who've done some really big projects and stuff, because the system doesn't work without liquidity. Because you can't be, even if the system is terrible, if you use an existing loyalty product, if you go to redeem the points will be accepted. So the liquidity was where we were stuck for a long time. And it was just trying to merge the crypto treasury management world and then the realities of how an e-commerce product would work. Yeah, it took us quite a few months to figure it out. Like, it sounds quite simple now, but that was sort of our big unlock. And it's funny, like, we'll come on to talk about raising cash and stuff, but like we did a huge amount of work on mechanics of the system, and we sort of stress tested it against people who would know a lot more than I do. And they were like, this seems to be okay. Like you might have these issues or whatever, but at a high level. So yeah, that was sort of a big unlock for us. And the really cool thing is that the network effects are for each brand. So I don't think that the big loyalty programs are going to sign up to this in the near term. I just don't think that's realistic. But for every brand that does sign up to this, the network effects are pretty cool, because it basically means that your token can then be redeemed for more goods and services than just your own. And so we have fancily, I'm not sure if we named it or it was out there, who knows, we call it tokenized commerce. That's how we're sort of looking at it.
Yeah, no, that makes so much sense. And two things I love there, Mark, are one, and this Venn diagram overlap of tokenization in one circle, and you've got loyalty in another circle. And then the overlapping circle of the Venn diagram is incentivization, which is such a big driver of both, like we were talking about. The second thing being that with taking on the responsibility from a treasury perspective to manage the ins and outs of the different tokens, the different loyalty tokens, and also obviously USDC and depending upon the currency in which your business is denominated, that this is a treasury function. And loyalty programs that are managing multi-currency programs and multi-currency treasuries are dealing with all this stuff every day. So you're just bringing that into a different mindset a little bit with the function that you need to support this within Coras.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I was quite informed. My wife grew up in Canada, and her brother went to her brother's wedding in Vancouver, and we stayed in the Marriott. I hadn't stayed in a hotel because of COVID and everything else like that. And they were like, "Oh, you can convert your points to all these airline programs." And Aer Lingus was one of them. And I was like, and I was playing around with loyalty systems, and it took 8 months because someone needed to do that manually. The thing about it is what excites me about the product that we're sort of building is that it gives any brand basically the function of a loyalty program, irrespective of their size. And I think they're going to be the early adopters, right? They're going to be brands who are going, we'd like to have a loyalty program. We can't afford it. This could be a solution for us. So that's what kind of really excites me, is that it's, and also like it takes us into other industries. It takes us into e-commerce. It takes us into retail. There's so many sort of facets to it. And yeah, so that's really exciting for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking at how you're going to go forward from here, congrats on the 1.3 million euro funding round into Coras, led by Irish VC Data Op. And shout out to Derek Delaney. I've known him for a very long time, going way back. And I'm sure there's a story there, Mark, about the ups and downs of raising that round, particularly because of everything we're talking about here. You're really at the crossroads of Web2 and Web3, that you're solving a Web2 problem with Web3 technology. And that sometimes that can be a little bit, not necessarily confusing to venture capital investors that may not be exposed to both sides of it. But tell me how you went about executing this round with, again, this Web2 business extending its business model into a Web3 based loyalty program.
Yeah, thanks. Like, obviously, yeah, it was pretty difficult. It's the amount of people who've come up to me since you raised, well, the environment's really terrible for raising money. Well done. Like you've kind of, that's been kind of quite funny. I think a lot of Web3 investors want just pure Web3 investments. And I think a lot of traditional tech investors either can't invest in Web3 businesses or still have very specific metrics in terms of how they invest in businesses, which mightn't fit a business that is sort of trying to bridge this gap. There was a relatively consistent piece of feedback going, "What the hell are you?"
Yeah,
that was definitely something we got quite a lot, and I totally get it. But to me, blockchain is a technology that a lot of companies and consumers will use in the same way that AI is a technology, albeit a potentially very important one. And I think like investors are kind of overloaded with incoming inquiries, and most don't really have the time to do a deep dive on a sort of a Web2, Web3 sort of crossover. And I think that the casino side of crypto doesn't help as well. It's sort of because it scares traditional investors away and leads to chasing the latest fads for sort of Web3 investors. So yeah, it was difficult for sure. But luckily, there's a binary outcome for funding. It either happens or it doesn't, right? So that's
Did you have
that's the problem.
Did you have two pitch decks, one for the Web2 VCs, one for the Web3 VCs?
No,
Good.
This was this was sort of the big sort of problem that we sort of had, which was I think we were trying to please too many masters, right? And I think that everyone has an opinion on like your investment presentation, and that can be quite soul destroying as well, because you're always trying to react to, well, I don't like that slide, or where is this slide missing, or whatever else like that. Actually, with Trireme, the treasury management company, we kind of had, listen, here's our presentation. We know it's not good enough for a Web3 investor, but we know that we still need to have the core explanation of who we are and how we're trying to transition and stuff like that. So it was, there was a lot of evolution of, and just based on feedback in terms of people going like, well, when you have 10 clients using this Web3 solution, we'd be interested in it. It's like, well, then I don't need your money then. It's like you had a lot of that kind of stuff. But yeah, so no, we only had one presentation, but it took a long time to get it right, I think is probably the fair assumption.
How many iterations do you think you went through of the pitch deck?
God, before it was in the form, I was like, this is good. I don't know, 15 to 20.
Oh, that's not bad. That's not bad. There's it's usually up in the 60s to 70s. But when I say iterations, I mean, okay, I've got a founder right now who's going through a funding round, sending me the deck. Oh, I've tweaked this, I've tweaked that. What do you think? I'm like, we're gilding the lily at this stage. And while this founder is actively pitching to investors and asking me for feedback, oh, I've changed this, I've changed that, based upon feedback from the investor. I'm like, just go. It's like Red at the end of Shawshank Redemption when he's on the release program and he's working in the supermarket and bagging groceries, and he says to his boss, bathroom break? And his boss says, yes, but you know what? Next time you don't need to ask, just go, right?
Yeah.
So we're at this stage with founders where they're actively raising the round, they're tweaking, they're going for it. Yes, I can give you feedback, but I'm gonna gild the lily even more. So yeah, I can understand how that, well, I know it's frustrating because it's frustrating for everybody, but it's impressive that you got to this point and that you got Data Op to lead the round. And what do you think it was that locked in Data Op? What was it?
Like the honest answer is you probably have to ask them. I think the key thing was that, and kind of comes on to the presentation, was that I kind of reached that point where I was like, I stopped pitching something that I thought investors wanted to see, and just basically pitched, this is what we're doing, and hopefully we'll find the right person who likes it. And I think we were lucky that we had, by the time we had made that decision, we had already made that change. So I think maybe by the time we got there, we're kind of going, listen, this is us. This is what we're doing. We hope you get it. If you don't, no problem. I think that was kind of a key thing. And that's like, to be honest with you, that's probably something that's taken me 15 years to figure out. I think it was just a frustration of people going, you should change. I was like, listen, this is what we're doing. This is reason it's a good idea. Here are the facts. Was like, and I think then we went into people, it was just like, people like going, I get it or I don't. And I think that the fact that they're a fintech investor, super important, because they understand that there is this big financial world out there. And ultimately, as we're talking about loyalty systems, it is treasury management. They come from, I think, treasury management kind of background, or obviously more traditional side. So maybe that, like, you'd have to ask them. But I think it was just a combination of where we had got to in how we were presenting ourselves, and also the fact that it was sort of FTX blow up had sort of waved its way through, the interest rate environment started to improve a bit. So the macro factors are a huge influence, I think, on terms of your timing of being able to raise money and stuff as well. Like and also like they started asking us a lot of, the reason I was interested, there were a lot of interesting questions about, well, what do you want to do and how do you build this? And kind of getting into, like, literally on the second call we did with them, we got like Nick, who's the head of Trireme, to literally go through the mechanics of exactly how the issuance and redemption would work from like a treasury management point of view. And so I think sort of, because ultimately, like, you can look at us going, you guys have no blockchain experience. Totally correct.
Yep.
So being able to have something that's like, well, we don't, but we're good at finding the right people to work with. That's, I think, what one of our strengths is. And so we were able to show them some case studies in terms of token appreciation over time and stuff, and treasury management over time and stuff as well. So I think that gave us a bit of credibility. But also you have to ask them. But that would be, again, I just think timing of how we were presenting ourselves, I think, was a big thing.
Well, a couple of things come to mind. I mean, you said it right there, and that is the TikTok teaser moment, Mark, that, listen, we just got to the point where like, we're not going to pitch what we think the investors want to hear. We're just going to pitch our business. Take it or leave it. And as a founder raising money, you need to get yourself to the mentality of, listen, tell me why I should let you into my round. You got 5 minutes, go, right? Without being that obtuse, and that, and having some humility there and some grace. But that is kind of the mentality that you need to have, that, and because that enables you to put forward a credible plan with what you're presenting. And the more credible it is, the less holes people are going to be able to poke in it. And of course, you're going to present a plan that is wrapped around your vision, or that is anchored by your vision. And if it's a good vision, it's strong, you got the experience you got since 2006 in this industry, man.
Yeah,
that's
I
hard
think
to say no to.
We had the right mentality and we met the right investor at the right time. That was really the...
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Listen, my view on it is like, there's loads of brilliant companies out there with really, really good ideas and really, really good teams. And ultimately, 99% comes down to timing and luck. That's just my view.
Totally.
Whereas in previous times, in like 2008 and things like that, maybe where we didn't have the luck, maybe this time we did. So I think that's the way that I sort of look at it. Yeah, just timing and luck seem to work.
Well, there is that crossover point. There is an X and Y axis here. There is your evolution along one of those axes as a founder and as a fundraiser and as a storyteller and as a leader. And that needs to keep improving and getting better every day. And eventually you're going to intersect with the other point, which is the investor appetite for what you're doing. Right?
Yeah, I think the other thing was that we kept on seeing all these data points about loyalty that were blowing my mind. I was just like, so that it was just like, at the start, it was a hunch about loyalty being an industry that we reinvented. And I think by the time we kind of went through the different iterations of presentation and meeting investors and blah, 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 I was kind of going, look, here is the CEO of Avios going, we have 7 airlines, 6 are on one loyalty system and 1 is on the other. We haven't even got interoperability amongst our 7 airlines. Yeah. And what we really want to do is enable Avios to be earned on multiple products. But there's a tech gap. Like, this is literally an article was in Skiff, like one of the big travel trade publications. And I was like screaming almost at the screen going, I know, because the tech is terrible. And it always comes down to the technology. It's like the technology facilitates the business model.
Definitely. The other thing that comes to mind is that, and shout out to the guys from Fundrex who are also funded by DataOp, and that saying to them back in 2012 when they started, well, what do you guys know about cloud? Right? Because they were one of the first providers of investment operations technology and platform that were totally cloud-based rather than on-prem. And they didn't really need to know that much about how cloud worked because they were leveraging providers to do that. I would like blockchain to get to the same level, because blockchain to me is just a technology that sits in the background for a lot of consumer propositions. Obviously, there's a lot of 90% of the industry right now in blockchain is attached to digital assets and crypto and stablecoins and everything involved in that space. But blockchain is increasing in usage, and I've seen tons of value propositions that are now just, hey, blockchain happens to be the best technology on which to deliver our value proposition.
Yeah, I'm really excited by, this sort of incentivization mechanism and how it can be applied to not sort of traditional loyalty, but sort of other products, like in terms of, and we've got to think, so that's, we've gone, well, maybe it could be applied to this or it could be applied to that. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Any advice to founders who are straddling the border between Web2 and Web3 in terms of, keeping their sanity?
Well, I think, as I said, I hate giving advice because everyone's experience is different. I think that's really, really important. And LinkedIn is full of 10 things I learned from XYZ at the moment. And it's absolutely horrific. But I think, again, just build something you believe in and try and get others to believe in it. It's very simple. I think historically I would have been quite resistant to changing investment presentation, how it was pitched. And so I think be more open to that process, realize that you're going to evolve in the investment raising process. And you might get there, but you're going to evolve and your presentation is going to evolve. And that's actually sort of okay. So yeah, just believe in something and try and get some more people to believe in it with you. I think that's all you can really do as a starting point, because if you haven't got that, then the rest is doesn't really matter.
Yeah. You got to believe in it first yourself, and that emotional attachment to solving a problem. You need that, and that comes with history and experience in the industry and experience with the problem you're solving, right? So, any insights from you while I'm looking for my next group of investments to make in 2025 in the Web3 space? And one of my big strands is the consumerization of blockchain-enabled value propositions, and any other applications that you think are worth pursuing, kind of based upon your experience with Coras to date and Fida?
Okay, so basically, if you think of do you have like a Nest thermostat?
Yep.
Okay, so every month you get an email from Google and it says your leaves this month are XYZ. And and that's purely related to the weather. So in Ireland, obviously, where it's around the same temperature for a large part of the year, but then it's obviously a bit colder around the winter months, your energy consumption increases then. But it's like, that's just totally meaningless to consumers. And if you look at like the stats on, if you turn your thermostat down by 1 degree, it has X impact on climate change. That should be a token. Yeah. Actually incentivize people for other behavior that's not necessarily rewarding behavior. That, I suppose I'm interested in, if you build this incentivization mechanism, which at the moment obviously is based around purchases, maybe you could adapt it to other industries as well. So that's kind of what I'm interested in. And look, we're a very small company and we're trying to build a production version of this product, and we have to walk before we can run. But I think again, just consumer incentivization. That's what it is, and it can be applied to so many different things. Yeah. So I'm excited to, in the medium to longer term, maybe sort of explore how it could be sort of applied.
I love it, and it's with the approach you're taking, Mark, and that expanding from your original MVP years ago, that you're saying, well, you can do two things. You can either solve the same problem for a different market or solve an adjacent problem for the same market. And I definitely see you going along that path and continuing to solve adjacent problems for.
Well, we hope so. Like, I think there's such a big opportunity in terms of renewables and energy and how that's sort of changing. And again, an industry I know nothing about. But, at a high level, it's like, well, maybe there's we're recording our energy usage. So maybe there's a way to do something about that, again, without knowing anything about it. But again, that's just a hunch. Let's put it that way.
Yep. No, I hear you. And I think at the core of this, you're dealing with primitives, like you said, incentivization and loyalty. We're at the point of the chat, Mark, where I ask the last question that I ask everybody on this podcast. What is one thing that people wouldn't expect to know about you?
Well, my friends would know, but maybe people on business. I always wanted to be a musician. It was my main focus. So I worked at Goldman's, and then I left Goldman's, made an acoustic demo, got reviewed in the NME. Then Universal Publishing said they would pay for recordings, and the person who was paying for them was paying for some bands who've gone on to be very, very successful at the time. And then finally, I didn't want to be a solo artist. And so James, who's the co-founder of Coras, was the bass player in the band. And it all led up to a big showcase in London. And we thought we were amazing. And they were like, you will never hear from us again.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
No, sorry. It was a brilliant experience. And I actually think that entrepreneurial, I don't think I had any entrepreneurial ambitions or genes until I was in a band, because you have that, like, where you need a better product, you're trying to build an audience, you're trying to hustle, and it's so competitive because the percentage of artists that get signed is tiny at the time or whatever. And coming back to the start, like, music and sport are my two interests. I wasn't very good at sport, but decent enough songwriter. So tickets were sort of the gateway, because that's how you get to watch sort of both of those. So yeah, so it was a brilliant experience. And actually, funnily enough, like, a lot of people who were working in record labels, sort of the A&R side of things at the time, then went on to a lot of the music tech companies like Spotify, Apple and places like that as well. So yeah, always been an interest. But it was like one of those things where you literally put a bag of CDs in your back and you walk around London and you're putting CDs in cubby holes and hoping someone listens to it and that kind of thing. So we got played on Radio 1 Northern Ireland once. So that was a highlight. And We got played on XFM once, I think, in London. So
that's cool.
And we got to play Whelan's, and that was me growing up. That was like sort of the mecca. It was to play Whelan's. So
what was the name of the band?
The Colors.
The Colors. Okay. All right.
I'll send you the Spotify link.
Do that. No, I was going to say that with entrepreneurs, it's about this hell-bent need to bring something to the world. Sometimes it's a song, sometimes it's a solution, right, to a problem that's been itching away at you and eating away at you for years. So there's a very close parallel between musicians and tech entrepreneurs. So you're in the right place.
Yeah, and even like if you look at like Ian Rogers, who's now at Ledger, I think his first job was selling merchandise for the Beastie Boys, and then he helped, found a company that turned into what the iTunes streaming platform is, and now he's the chief product officer for Ledger. Like, so you do see, like, he's been incredibly successful in a number of different industries. So you do see other music industry people who come into crypto in a few different ways.
Totally. No, definitely see that. All right. Well, listen, Mark, thank you. It's been a wonderful chat. Wishing you the best of luck with Coras and Fida. And
thanks a lot.
It's impressive.
We'll do our best. Cheers, Pete. Talk to you soon. Take care.
That does it for this week, folks. Thanks to Mark McLaughlin for opening up his mind to help us figure out why he does what he does. For show notes and resources, check out our website, moneyneversleeps.ie. If you like what you heard, please leave us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, as it helps others to find the show. Also, thanks to Conan Brophy from Create Sound for mixing and editing this episode. Conan is an excellent media man to get in touch with when you're thinking about launching your own podcast. As for me, I'm an early-stage startup investor focused on where fintech meets crypto and crypto meets Web3, and I lead the Techstars Web3 Accelerator. Applications are open now for our spring 2025 class, so check us out on techstars.com/accelerators/web3 to apply. There are plenty of links in the show notes, also on moneyneversleeps.ie on how to get in touch with us, so don't hesitate to reach out. Finally, till next time, thanks for listening. See ya!